You ready to do this thing?
Let's get into it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sweaty Casuals, brought to you by the Snowflake Sanctuary Discord server. This is the podcast where we usually talk about the games we love to play, from the state of ranked systems to the newest sensations and everything in between. My name is Zach. This is your co-host, my co-host, Nox. She's not your co-host. She's mine. Sorry. We're going to be your guides as we traverse Elo Hell. Small reminder, we do swear, so your discretion is advised. Today, we're going to do another solo pod, but we're going to be taking a look at our stats for Overwatch Season 10. Things we expected to see, what surprised us, because we decided to stat track. Nox, my icebreaker for you. I know I have one written down, but it's not what I'm going to ask you. I'm sorry. What's the best note that you have written down when you were stat tracking?
Like, did you keep notes?
Oh yeah, I kept a few. I didn't go crazy, but I got some good ones.
You share yours first.
Okay. I have one game that's just our Kiri got out-healed by the enemy Zen.
That's really good. That's really
Nothing
funny.
else, just...
God, that would have been... I'm going to be so honest. I didn't leave any notes. Except for on one, I left possible cheater on the opposite team.
I had a couple of those.
But other than that, I didn't leave many. But if I were to annotate this spreadsheet like I annotate my books, there would have been a lot of what the fucks. There would have been a lot of, if our tank didn't just press W into the enemy team, maybe we would have had a fighting shot. You know, things like that.
Things like that.
And that's not a dig at tanks, just the tanks, some of the tanks that I've had.
I also love how at one point I seemed to be really ambitious and I wrote down reported teammate for text chat. I did not keep up writing all of those down because that note would be in way more games.
Well, and like what I think some of like the notes, like the our Kiri got out healed by the enemy Zen, are funny and important to keep. We're like, what are you gonna do with like a text chat report?
Oh yeah, no, I think it was more just like an interesting thing that I wrote down at one point, and I just never kept up with it, and I'm glad I didn't, because I think the first thing to note was just keeping track of all this stuff was kind of a lot of work.
It definitely took a little bit to get used to. So backing up a little bit, I was on Reddit ahead of Season 10, right as Season 10 started, and I found a post. I was actually looking for questions for our Questions from the Internet series on the Overwatch University subreddit, and I found this guy who had been making these spreadsheets to match track for the last few seasons of Overwatch, and I was like, that sounds right up my alley. I love spreadsheets, I love data, I love looking at it, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna see if it's worth my time. And I got Zach to do it with me, so the two of us have full spreadsheets. I know you probably have a decent amount more data than I do. I know I only played 290 matches of ranked in Season 10. I don't know how many you got to.
356.
So you have about 60 more games than I do from the season, which makes sense. I think we both kind of slowed down in the season at the same time.
Around the same time. I think I hung on for a little bit longer when you started the Hearthstones phase.
Right. And so there's like a little bit more data there. It was a big transition and adjustment to after the game when you were so tilted from your loss not to just click through your screens because you needed that data. You needed to know the percentage to add on. You needed to know percentage was the big thing and what rank you were at.
We should probably go through which data what did we write down for every match?
Yeah. So every match we would write down what we queued as. So even if you all queued, you would
as in
roll. So you would do roll queue damage, roll queue support, roll queue tank to categorize the match that you're playing. You would then put the map that you played on. You would put who you played with. So you could add your friends' names and keep track of your wins and losses when you're playing with friends, which is, I think, funny in a way.
It's definitely interesting.
But you can also note if you solo queued. You would note down what hero you played, you felt the majority of the time. And I think that was a little bit subjective because there were
Mm-hmm.
times where I might have played May, for example, for 60% of the match and then went to Ash for the last 40. But if I felt like I had a greater impact on the game when I was playing Ash, I picked to note her. So I usually did it by what character I felt like I had the most impact on. And that helped, especially during King of the Hill maps,
Mm-hmm.
when you were playing 3 different maps in 3 different rounds, to be able to be like, well, I kind of slogged my way through a character for the first 2 rounds, picked a different character in the third round, and we kind of stomped.
Mm-hmm.
I would note that character.
I
You would
did
then
the same.
also, yeah, you would then also note the score of the game. So if you're playing a Flashpoint map, it might be 2 to 3, 3 to 2. If you're playing push, it's usually 1 to 0. It is 1 to 0 or 0 to 1. Like you would note down the score. And then at the end of the match, you would note what rank you ended up at after the match, the rank percentage that you ended on, not how much you
Mm-hmm.
gained or lost, any modifiers it gave you, such as uphill battle, consolation, demotion protection, things like that. And then it would automatically fill in if you win or lost based on you won or lost based on the score, the percentage change that you had during the match, what your group size was, and then the date and time you played it. You could also note down if you had a lever or a thrower during the game as well.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the metrics that we were grabbing after every single match that we played. And this, I will say, I think Zach had it too. This was every single competitive match I played. I didn't count quick play,
I didn't count quick play either.
but
I
every
did do.
single competitive match was logged this season for me.
Yep, I also did the same. Which was a pain in the butt, especially for like that one match where you're not in charge and somebody runs through the screen, and you immediately get requeued, and you're like, ah, crap, I didn't get all the info, and you have to go back and try and figure it out.
You almost started, like, I know I started when you loaded into a match, I would grab who was playing, what map I was playing,
Yeah.
what role I was playing. There were times where I would even try to guess the score if I felt like I was pretty confident in the way that the game was going. So like if we got pushed
Oh, I
all the
never did
way
that.
on, but like let me rephrase. If you're playing Rialto, if you're playing
Mhm.
on Rialto and the other team is on attack first and pushes it all the way to point 3 and gets those 3 points, I would note down the 3 points.
Oh, no, no, no. I'd never do that because like if they have to push again, then they could go up to 4 or 5.
Right.
I
And I
I'd
would
only do it
adjust,
if they
but
like so like on a push map if they got it to um exactly like first point and never made it past that, I'd go fill that in. But otherwise I'd try and I'd leave it alone. So this was a spreadsheet made by Harry Protter. Um that's a heck of a name.
thank you.
Uh-oh. You good?
Yeah.
Okay, you cut out for a second.
Yeah, I love Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Harry Potter on a Reddit, and he did a really good job with the spreadsheet. Like straight up, it was great. It was well done. There's a donate button here, and I should honestly try and click it at some point.
Links you to a PayPal. It's really easy.
Perfect. Um, but there were some weird little quirks about it, and I think it has less to do with him and more to do with Google Sheets. So there were some things like if you filled in, I know if you put in the wrong player, like getting it to like actually reset and clear it was kind of a pain in the butt.
That's Google Sheets though.
Yeah. Well, we got all this data and it's really interesting. So let's just kind of go through the tabs. The cool thing about the way that this spreadsheet was set up was that it has an input tab and then it gives you, what is it, 7 more tabs that it just takes all of your match information
Inputs.
and it just kind of throws them out into all the other things and does all the math for you. So you get some percentages, you get some numbers that you can actually kind of tangibly do things with, which is interesting. It's super interesting. What was your longest streak? Period. Either or.
Ooh. Where would you find that?
It's under rank. It's under the rank
Under
tab.
rank. Longest streak. My overall longest streak was 11 combined.
The win streak or loss streak?
win streak was 11 between all my roles. My longest, I had a 6-game win streak in damage, I had a 6-game win streak in support, and a 5-game win streak in tank.
I had a 14 loss streak. That one hurt a bit.
I remember that one. I had an 8-game loss
Yeah.
streak in support. I did realize as I was looking through my input tab, and you can kind of see your win and loss like over time, I found that I tended to work in streaks. It seemed like you would win a few games and then you'd lose a few games. It was
For sure.
it happened a lot less that you would go win, loss, or like win, loss, win, loss. It seemed like it worked in 4 to 5 game streaks.
What was your overall win rate?
My overall win rate this season was 48.8%.
Mine was 49.4. So, I mean, one thing to note here is like we like to rag on Overwatch and how it doesn't really feel competitive, but it's pretty darn close to 50%.
Right. Which, when you're looking at the numbers, feels shitty.
Yep.
To look at your season and go, I went 141 wins and 148 losses, I feel like I didn't gain anything from this season. And another thing that played in this season is 141 and 148 doesn't mean that I won or lost an average of 20 every game because wide groups were introduced.
Yes.
So a lot of my wins, I came out, I would say, rank-wise, a lot lower than what 48% would tell you because a lot of my wins came with wide groups.
Yep. Yeah.
What was your average overall gain of percentage throughout the season?
My overall?
Yeah.
It was my average win rate was 49.4.
I'm sorry. Below that,
Oh, sorry.
rank
Yeah.
changes, average gain, average loss.
Average. Yeah, are you talking just the average change?
Yeah, like overall, how much on
Okay.
average did you gain per match?
Apparently I lost about half an SR point in overall.
I was down 0.16, but my data is hella skewed because of my tank matches.
I was gonna say it's interesting because my tank actually was trending upward.
My tank, I had an overall change every match of 6 SR this season because I hadn't played tank for like 8 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in, I forget what they call it, I was in calibration matches.
Oh, yep. Where
So
it's
every
kind of...
time I won, I was gaining like 45 percentage points.
Mm-hmm.
Because my average gain in a single match was 29 points for tank. Whereas for
I wish that.
whereas for my damage and my support, they both hovered about 17 and a half.
My biggest gain overall on any roll was 24 SR, which...
Okay, I lied. It wasn't 45. It was 40. I was getting for wins on calibration. And then the losses are weird too. How much you lost per match because demotion protection can screw you
Yeah,
over.
demotion protection in Overwatch, just straight up to rename it. I'm sorry, get rid of it. It doesn't do anything right now because it still takes your way to your SR.
Right, because there's no way that I lose 43 SR at a support game. But when I'm at 1 percentage point into the next rank and I go into demotion protection and then lose another game that I was supposed to win, well, now I'm at minus 43.
Yeah, and it's stupid. I'm sorry, Blizzard. That's one that you guys do need to fix. Like, it's one thing to be like, oh, we're protecting you and keeping you in the rank. Just set us to 0. Set us to 0 for the match, and then for the next one, then you can take away 20 or whatever it's supposed to be that we're supposed to get demoted to. But
the fact that it stacks, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's a fancy word that doesn't make you feel any better.
No, it just keeps the shiny metal on your page for one more game, essentially.
Yeah, it doesn't help with the mental at all. Like, there's no good reason for it.
No, because do you want to know what hurts more than losing 2 games in a row and dropping a rank? losing 43 SR in one match.
Yeah.
I do think the smallest gain is funny because it tends to show off the wide groups.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
smallest gain of the season was 3 points. My smallest loss was 1.
My smallest on each was 1.
Those wide groups, when you start getting into you're in plat or nearly diamond and you're playing with your friends that are in silver and bronze, that match,
Yeah.
your SR do not change
It
after
don't
that
matter.
game, which is fun
Yeah.
because you're at least. I think Blizzard is accomplishing something there in the fact that they're making a game mode in a competitive setting that doesn't feel like it's life or death if you want to play with your friends. Your
Yeah.
higher ranked friends are not going to lose a ton of SR that they've gained because they're playing with in a lobby with players that might not be up to the same skill level. And the people that are at the lower skill level don't feel like they're getting run over the entire game
Hmm.
to get shit on. Everyone's kind of just it's in a competitive setting where it's very low stakes. I think the only frustrating time was when you're playing Overwatch and you load it up and you want to actually grind for a little bit. You're not grinding in wide groups.
No. No.
You're not doing shit in wide groups.
No,
So,
if you want to make swings, then you either gotta kind of you gotta keep the group narrow.
the last thing I wanted to highlight on the rank page for this season, the game did keep track of your win rate per what modifier you got at the end. Now, some of this is whatever data, because if you're receiving the uphill battle tag, you received that because you won.
Yeah. So it's
So
always gonna
for uphill battle, I was 18-0 this season.
right.
Whereas for consolation, which you get when you lose, I was 0-24. So that doesn't make any difference on your data. What I do want to highlight is what was your win rate when there was no modifier on the game, when it was when Overwatch deemed it a completely fair game.
55%,
Mine was 59,
which is interesting.
which I like because I can now go look at Blizzard and say you're the reason my overall win rate was worse because you were putting in me in games that I was set up to fail.
I think we'd probably have to crunch some numbers more from here because there are some things that, like, a game that's considered a win streak or a loss streak, those could also be considered fair matches. We'd have to go through and double check that data.
Right. But to be honest, I only had 5 total games this season where I was in win streak or loss streak.
I had 9.
So I don't think it would alter my data a whole ton.
I think it would do some of mine. The other one is demotion protection,
Right.
and that one,
Right. So
I
there's
don't know about
things.
you.
So we could put
I've
demotion. I guess if we put demotion protection in there, we might have different numbers.
I've got
I'll
37 demotion protection matches,
I
so
had 36 of them.
yeah. So I think that could be a pretty big.
Sure.
I want to skip a couple of our tabs here and just go to
Sure.
group, just because we've already kind of touched on that.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I tended to do poorly when we started getting into bigger groups.
Yes. My sweet spot was trio. But but who do me and you usually trio with?
Ooh.
PK.
Did we have a lot of matches with PK?
Earlier in
We
the
did have.
season, we played a
Yeah,
lot
we
with
did.
PK.
And PK is he's got an old Overwatch 1 icon that he still uses, because who wouldn't use the top 500 icon if they have it?
PK is very good at this game. So trios, I think that he is part of the reason that we tended to trend it up during trio matches.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was 38 and 31 in trios, but I was solo queue. I had a 49.3% win rate when I was duoing, which was most of the time most of the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yep. Same.
48.8%. And then
49.6.
actually my 4 group and 5 group are exactly the same at a 27.3 win rate.
I've got a 36 and a 25, so I think something I learned is that 4 and 5 stacks, like, we may do well in scrims, we may do well in other areas, but in terms of comp matches, when we stack that way, at least some of the groups that we ended up forming just didn't tend to work out well.
Mhm.
I don't know how I feel that my solo matches were. I had a higher than 50% win rate.
Nice.
That's weird.
And then when we look at matches by specific player as well on this spreadsheet, it's hard to say because it's
Yeah, let's
whenever
not
you
mention
get
any names.
Nope. It's when we
I-
get included in it's when they're included in a group. So this could be in a 5 stack, this could be in a duo, this could be in a trio and a quartet. What
Yep.
I will mention only by name because we've mentioned him and because you're here. I'll talk about yours and PK's. You were like my 4th highest win rate when you were in
Mhm.
the group at a 48.5.
I have a different number.
I will
That's
actually call
interesting.
this person out because I have a perfect win rate with them. Me and Mira were 100%. We were 4-0 one night.
I'm down 1 on Mira, but
And then
we did well.
PK, I have a 50% win rate with.
PK, I have exactly a 50% win rate.
So it's interesting to look at that too. Just as interesting as it is, we don't talk about that very often, obviously, but I like looking at Zach and I's because we play so often together.
Yeah, and we're close to 50.
Right.
Um,
It actually
think
mirrors my overall win rate. So
Yep. Mine's a hair lower, but it's not up the par. So
mhm.
I think the one thing that this was really cool and eye-opening to have is that I can actually look now and see some players that I'm like, okay, these are people I need to figure out how to work better with.
Right.
Because clearly something's not clicking. And some of these are people I play with often.
Well, and then some of them, there is a member in our server who's named Kiwi. I have a 0% win rate with him, but I have
Is it
played
one
one
match?
game.
Yeah, and I think it was you. I think it was a 5 stack or 4 stack.
Played one game with him. So like that percentage win rate, or Bandito, who's been on the show before, we played 6 games together. We were 1-5. It could have just been a bad day. There's not
Yep.
enough data there to really show.
For sure.
Can we talk about day and time?
Yeah, let's do that one next. Real quick. Because I think
This
that
one
one's super interesting.
makes me angry. Makes me
This
so
one
angry.
hurts me. This one hurts me a lot. So
We can start with day of the week.
yeah, let's start with day of the week. So is it the same for you where Tuesdays and Wednesdays are just shit days to play Overwatch?
Nope. Tuesdays are
Really?
actually some of
Okay.
my better days. I had a
Okay.
56% win rate on Tuesdays.
Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I lose a lot.
Saturdays were my best days.
Yep.
Saturdays, I was at
Saturdays were weird for me.
58%. I think
My
that's partially because those Saturdays I have the most time to play.
Mhm.
So I have actually that's not my most popular day by the week. That does not make any sense. My most popular day of the week to play this season was Thursday, in which I had a 51% win rate. And Sundays. Holy crap. I played 84 games of my 200 and some on Sunday. I had a 47.6 win percentage. That's when all the youngins are out.
Mhm.
I don't know, they're too quick for me. I'm old. I don't got their reaction time. These 16-year-olds, these 12-year-olds
How do you think I
shitting
feel?
on me. Get wrecked.
Yeah, I know.
So Tuesday and Wednesday were your worst days to play. Wednesday was really bad. Wednesday had a 42% win rate.
Tuesdays and Wednesdays were awful. I am in the 30%.
Wow. I didn't drop that low for any of mine.
And then I've got Mondays that apparently I have an almost 60% win rate, which is
Nice.
bizarre. Like what makes so for me it was like Friday through Sunday, Friday through Monday. If I played Friday through Monday, I would have never gone down. Apparently. Tuesday, Wednesdays just kind of shoved me down
It's the
constantly.
middle of the week. Wonder what's about
Something
that.
about it.
I think more interesting than day of the week, though, is time of day.
This one was weird for me as well.
What was your lowest percentage overall, and what time was it at?
25%. 9 a.m. to noon.
Really?
Yeah.
The worst time for me to play Overwatch was 6 PM to 6 is it to 9?
Yep.
Yeah? Is my math okay on that? Yes.
Yeah.
6 PM to 9. I was 13 and 30 for the season from 6 PM to 9 PM, which is so unfortunate because that's when I play Overwatch.
Mine was lower, but it wasn't ridiculous. I had about 45%, and it was just, I think it was just, that's when so many more people are on.
It's when all the kids come home from school.
No, the kids were home from school earlier than that.
That's
I
when they're
think
done with
it's,
homework. It's when you're playing video games at night.
no, I think it's more the people coming home from work.
Mm. Let me believe it's the young and shitting on me, not people my own age.
Sorry.
My best time to play. So okay, back it up. 6 to 9 PM. I had a 30% win rate during that time. But my best time to play was actually right after that, 9 to midnight. I had a 56% win rate.
Mine was midnight to 6 a.m. because I don't sleep. So
I
I
I don't know what
grind
happened
way into
for
the
a
morning.
while. For a while, I had a perfect win percentage from midnight to 3. But
And then at some point,
I don't know what happened. Now we're 11-14. So
and then the exhaustion kicked in.
yeah, yeah. No, time of day was funny because it was it was an ongoing joke where, like, if we were on a loss streak at night from 6 to 9 PM, I could just be like, "Guys, I'm so sorry. It's just it's shit on Nox time. It's just she's not allowed to play Overwatch between these hours."
I think at one point I did say to you, I'm like, oh yeah, this is not a good time for me to play.
Yeah. It's funny because it didn't I wouldn't say it dictated when I was playing, but it was funny to see the trends that were like, you can't ignore 13 and 30 and during a certain time of day. That
Yep.
happened over the course of 8 weeks.
Yep. Absolutely.
Is there anything else
Um,
you wanna cover on this?
no, I think that's most of the information on that sheet. Did you have anything interesting for your heroes? I found out that I'm not. I thought I was an okay Zarya. I am not. I need to work on that.
Let me find, is this overall for everyone? Heroes are weird because they're skewed a certain way if you don't play them very often. For example, I am a crappy Mauga, but I have a 100% win rate on him because I was 1-0. The ones that actually mattered, my
I ignored
Cassidy
my.
win my
I ignored my
Cassidy win
Roadhog.
rate was yeah, my Cassidy win rate was pretty good. I was 16 and 11 on Cassidy this season. My Ash was pretty okay, 16 and 14. Who else did I play a lot? Sombra. You'll get a kick out of this. My Sombra win rate was 33%. I was 8 and 16 on Sombra.
Better than mine.
And then what was my other big one? I was 14 and 11 on Widowmaker this season. So I came out positive with a 56.
I was
The other
1
big
0 on
ones to
Widow.
note, most of my support games were played on Yari this season. I had a 53% win rate on her with 32 and 28. And then I was also positive with my other most played hero, which is these two are furthest ahead, no questions asked. I had 60 games with Yari and 47 games with Ana. I had a 51% win rate with Ana.
One of the things I realized when we were starting to go through this and just look at some of the numbers, this information is good and interesting. It's incomplete.
Right.
So I did actually go look and compare it to what Overwatch actually keeps. So I have
Sure.
Overbuff open and I'm hoping it loaded. Nope, it's got an error. That's great.
Woo!
But I was just kind of comparing. So like, according to my stat tracking, so matches that I primarily played Zarya, I had a 20% win rate. But according to, yeah, it was not good. Part of it's just because like Zarya is one of those ones that I tend to go to when certain
Shit's
situations come
hitting
up.
the fan.
It's not even shit's hitting the fan. It's like, man, Diva's just sitting in my backline. Okay, I just
Yeah.
need something to deal with that. Or if the enemy team has decided that all they want to do is CC me, she's a pretty good option to help deal with that. But it's funny because even though I recorded 20%, according to Overwatch, it was 38%, which is still not good. But there were definitely matches where I swapped a lot.
I have found, especially probably with tank players and the fact that you're playing counter swap, counterwatch the entire game, your stat tracking on the spreadsheet like this is going to be much different. Whereas when I lock Cassidy for the entire game, it doesn't matter. I don't really have to swap most often. And I've found that Overwatch win rates on their, like, in the game tend to trend higher than what we have here. Tend to.
Yep. Tend to. I'd say that in general, they actually kind of skew towards 50.
Really? I don't think I found that with my top played.
According to Overwatch, my Winston win rate was actually really high. It was like 70% or something.
Right.
But according to what I tracked, it was closer to like 47.
Right.
46? 46.
So they obviously have their algorithms in code that somehow compute if you play them for, let's say, 32% of a match, and you win, how does that impact your win rate? With that character, you don't get the full 100% for that match. You get something different. It's how you can have, like, you can be like 1-0 on Ana, but have like a 60-something% win rate with her. Because there might have been games where you lost, but your primarily played character that got the win or the loss for that game was not Ana. Yeah. Even though you played her at times.
So I take this particular sheet and all of this information with a grain of salt, but it is interesting to look at. I think you kind of have to look at a balance between what your career profile actually has and what you've recorded.
Who were your top? Sorry.
Ones that weren't Owl Hours. Apparently, my Diva's still rocking. My Diva was 20-9.
Who were your top played heroes for the entire season?
I have it written down somewhere. Winton for tank. Baptiste on support, and Sojourn, which is weird because
I played a lot of Sojourn.
I did play a lot of Sojourn, which is weird because usually I play Pharah, and my Pharah was rocking. I played 26 matches on Pharah. I had a 92% win rate.
Should have played more Pharah.
Yeah, apparently.
I know mine was pretty standard. In past seasons, my top played were Cassidy, Ana, and Ashe, but this season I played Iari. This was the first season that I fully had access to her as a character, so I picked her up and played her a ton. Ana, of course, Ana's always going to be in my top 3 with how many support games I play and how that's just my comfort hero. I know how to play her. I know her inside and out. I know how to be effective. I do love that Widow was in my top 3. That makes me so incredibly happy that I was able to have a almost 50% win rate season. She came out on top of win rate for herself on my characters. That means I don't suck. I'm good at the video game, guys. I did it. Viable. Because every time I used to insta-lock Widow, especially this man up here, used to be like, oh, we're throwing?
No. My favorite's still my match. Whenever I play Widow, what do I say?
Then I say it.
No. What do I say when I pick
YOLO?
YOLO.
You sound just like a boomer. It's great. Gives me a little chuckle. Who says YOLO?
Back in my day. It's funny because it wasn't even like, I'm trying to think. YOLO was... I was in college.
It wasn't that long ago, but it quickly moved into cringe culture.
A little bit. It was cringe when it happened.
Yeah. I was in middle school, I think. Like, it was like perfect time for someone like me to be using YOLO, the sheltered 12-year-old who goes to basketball practice driven by their parents every night, was like, YOLO! What was I YOLOing? What the hell was I YOLOing at 12?
I have no idea. College was we had plenty to YOLO.
Oh yeah, that would have been much more applicable.
Yeah. No, but I just love to do it on Widow because, like, Widow's just one that I'm not a good Widow. The fact that I consider to have a 100%, but it's because I have one game on her. But apparently I won that game, so that makes me feel nice.
Widow is one of those characters that, for whatever reason, I decided one day that my favorite characters were going to be the ones that stand in the back and farm damage and get picks. So, Widow, Hanzo, Cassidy to an extent. There's many different ways to play Cassidy effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Ashe. Ashe is another favorite. I'm surprised Ashe didn't make my top 3 this season, but then again, looking at my stats, Cassidy had more time than she did. Widow had more time than she did. It was actually a really good season to play Ashe because of the DPS passive.
Yep.
You ever wanted to apply the passive to 5 people at once? Let me introduce you to Dynamite. It was a really advantageous time to play Ashe, which is why I think my win rate and why she was high and why I think she was good this season. I think it was something about my playstyle this season. I wasn't feeling comfortable on her. Dive was big again. It was Widow can stay so far back that it doesn't matter most of the time unless they're hard targeting you. But yeah. But Dive was big, so Ashe is that little bit, she has to play a little bit closer than Widow does, and it was a little bit of a hard time at times.
Yeah. Like I said, this was interesting. I feel like this information is super incomplete, though.
Right.
I'm going to come back to that.
I know we're kind of running close to time here.
We are. I do want to touch base. I don't think the lever thrower is really crazy important. That was more just an interesting
I
thing.
want to talk about your maps really quickly.
Yeah, maps was an interesting one because apparently there's some maps I'm really good at and some that I need to go sit down and rethink how I handle them. I suck at Havana apparently. Which I knew that.
So do I. Well, Havana's just a bad map.
It's a rough map. It's a really rough map. But particularly because I play tank so much, I'm relying usually on somebody to poke distance-wise.
My lowest win rate map this season breaks my heart. Absolutely breaks my heart that I had such a rough time on this map. Do you want to take a stab?
It's a King's Row.
20% win rate on King's Row. I was 2-8. 2-8 on that map, and I love that map. Like a lot of people. Most basic take I have in my life. I love King's Row. 2-8 on King's Row. Now, arguably one of my least favorite maps to play on, and this is a hot take. This is one of my least favorites. I hate Ilios. I hate that map.
Yeah, I had a weird high win rate for that as well.
88.9% win rate. I was 8-1 on Ilios.
We must have been playing together for all those matches.
I hate that map. I hate Boops. I hate Roadhogs. I hate Lucios. That map is, and then Ruins is a I hate the design of that map. Not a fan of Ilios. Apparently very good at it.
Yeah, but I think this was probably one of the more interesting and insightful ones because I think there's a lot of things that I was like, oh, like I feel like I know this map fairly well, and apparently I need to rethink how I play on them.
It's also funny for like these, if you have a bad statistic on a certain map that you already didn't like, it's like, oh yeah, I knew I was bad at this one, and here's the proof. For example, I've always hated Watchpoint Gibraltar. I've always hated that map. 33% win rate on that map.
I like Watchpoint, but I also play heroes that have mobility generally.
What was the map you played on the most?
The most? That's a great question.
I have a couple tied for 13. Oh, just kidding. No, I have a clear winner.
I do as well.
What is yours? Is it a Flashpoint map?
It's Havana.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Unfortunate. How many times did you play on Havana?
19.
That's so many. Is there any that are close?
I think the next closest is 16.
Oh my god.
2 maps I played 16 times.
They
Nope,
said
nope. I
get
had
wrecked.
117.
They said get wrecked. You're getting Havana.
Yeah, well, Oasis wasn't great for me either.
The one that they stuck me on the most, which is really funny. These are two of my top played maps this season. I hate Flashpoint with a passion. I hate those maps. I don't think Flashpoint is fun.
They were pretty even for me.
I had 15 matches on New Junk City and 13 matches on Cervasa. I was a 60% win rate on I was 50-50 exactly on Flashpoint.
Same. I was a little off, but like when you average those two numbers, you get 50%. So
Yep. I had 15 games with a 60% win rate on New Junk City and 13 games with a 38.5% win rate on Cervasa.
I do find that really interesting that just like, I know that I don't think either of us are going to say that we're fans of Flashpoint. I don't think anybody in the community I've really heard say, yeah, we love Flashpoint. In terms of balanced game mode, like, it seems actually okay.
The only game mode or map mode that I was not exactly even get this. I had exactly even on control maps. I had exactly even on Flashpoint. I had exactly even on push. And I had nearly even, in which I was a 51% win rate on hybrid. But my escort was at 44%.
I mean, that's something good to know, though. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's something about escort maps that doesn't work to the way that you play the game right now.
Unless I'm on Rialto, then I'm set. I do love Rialto. I love that map.
I'm not a huge Rialto fan. Apparently, I play well there, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
Sniper Paradise.
Would you consider match tracking again after the season?
I would consider it. I'm not going to do it for season 11 because the season's already started, and I didn't. This was a lot. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of effort. It's really interesting information. But I know I talked to you before the show, and I was like, yeah, before we do this, I wanted to mention you. I touched base with Paradox Muse, who's been on the show before. Paradox, especially being an esports coach, does numbers and knows them a lot better than I do. And I was just like, given the information that we did take, like, what things would you like try and get out of it? What things would you want to talk about? One of the things that he mentioned to me that if we were to do this again, I would write down at least our stuff on the scoreboard in terms of elims and deaths.
Mm-hmm. Get a KDA or
Because it would be
KD.
really, really interesting to be like, hey, the matches where my had a high KDA were the matches that I tended to win, or even matches if you could be like, yeah, I had a high KDA for a lot of the matches I lost. I
Mm-hmm.
think that would be some more interesting information.
Right. Because this is fun just to look at and be like,
Yes.
oh, this is cool data. Usable data though that applies outside of just what we made. There's not a lot there.
There's a lot of little things that I feel like there's holes in this that we've pointed out some of them. The fact that we were only tracking one hero that we played.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of does skew a lot of this information in one direction or another. The fact that there is a lot of outliers, and I'm sorry, my statistics is a bit rusty, so I was unable to go through and figure out which ones we did or didn't get. I think the fact overall that I was like, man, most of these numbers are actually pretty close to 50% at the end of the day was super interesting.
I would agree.
And I think that alone, it doesn't make me feel great, but it does like make me feel like at least, Blizzard is trying to make the game fair.
At least the game's working.
Yep.
Because
it may not feel like it.
The point of MMR and the point of rank systems is that the game wants to find your middle area. It wants to find where you fit. So, as much as it's disheartening to look at this and go, well, maybe I'm destined to be a plat player, at least I'm in games and I'm at the win rate that Blizzard thinks I'm playing at.
Mm-hmm.
Which means something is working.
And I can't speak for your numbers, but like Tank was the one that I continued to work on this season, and I was really trying to push. and it was nice to see, like, I could see that little bit of an improvement. That was the one that was above 50%. And it wasn't a lot, but it was enough that I could be like, yes, I am improving.
Right. Right. Whereas I think
I think
what's the word? Reverted, not that. Regressed. Like my support was worse this season. I don't know what happened.
I do feel like to really get the full scope of it, you'd have to record like between patch note changes and things.
Yeah,
Because like this includes 3 sets of patch notes, if I recall. It
probably.
was the initial one. I think there was a couple nerfs, couple weeks in, and then the mid-series season patch notes.
Yeah, because my Yari was really, really high for the first part of the season, and I think she got nerfed in the middle of the season, and I struggled a little bit more, or she got buffed. I can't. It was one of the two. It was
Which, like, because we included the date, we could actually
right.
we could probably finesse that out of what we have, but we didn't. Sorry.
That's a lot of work. I like
It
things
is
when
a
it's
lot of work.
automated for me. Thanks, Harry Potter. If you ever see this.
Yeah, yeah, dude. Like, we should absolutely go follow up on his post and be like, dude, your spreadsheet's awesome.
Mm-hmm. No, he's super awesome too. I had problems with my spreadsheet when I first downloaded it too, and he was like he messaged me on Reddit and was like super willing to help me out and figure out what was wrong with it. Seems like a really good dude.
We should absolutely reach out to him because this spreadsheet was awesome, so good. Um, I think the one thing that I'm going to take away from this particular experience and this information that I've gotten, there are heroes I need to work on. There are maps I need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I may have only had, oh gosh, let's pick random one. I only had 8 matches on New Body. That's not, insignificant, but it's not significant either. It's enough that I can say, yeah, there's some significance there. But the fact that my win rate on there is pretty low, maybe I need to rethink how I play on those maps.
Right. Right.
And I do think that's super worthwhile. If you want to actually get better at the game, then this is the type of information that you do kind of want to figure out how to get.
Absolutely.
And I wish that we had better ways of tracking it in game, but
Only so much a small indie company can do.
yeah.
I need a master cut of every time I've said small indie company or anyone said small indie company on this podcast. We're probably at a few now.
One day.
YouTube Shorts, here we come. If you don't watch those, you should. They're funny.
Yeah, we've had some
They're
good
like
ones.
TikToks for the youngins, but they're funny. But all right. I guess my 2 cents is I would do this again. I like data. I echo a lot of what Zach's got in terms of like there are things to look at to improve. It was a lot of work, but didn't find it overbearing. Maybe not. Probably not season 11, as I don't feel like this will be a big season for me to play. Just given everything else that's going on. I have a lot of stuff going on in my life with events and things like that. And Minecraft and Hearthstone are my 2 loves right now. So
the 2-week Minecraft phase is on.
It's been far more than 2 weeks already. Or at least it feels like it.
I think it's only been a week.
It's been more. It's been more.
Not by much.
Well, my castle finally has all of its supplies, so we're going to have that up soon. I'm excited for that. But, all right, wrapping it up. Real world. We talk about things not related to gaming. Books, movies, TV shows, trips, concerts, whatever it be. Zach, go.
I got some work coming up, and when I do that work, I have to deal with a lot of SD cards and micro SD cards. So it's a pain in the butt. It's something that you just have to keep organized and be like, I've got things going on, I've got things that I need to deal with. So when I was thinking about how I'm going to handle it this time around and how I'm going to work with it, I said, cool, I'll go and design a holder for them, and I'll 3D print them. So now I've got 8 3D printed SD card holders. They're actually really nice. I really like them. They got little spots for all the SD cards, little spots for all the micro SDs, and it's just enough, and they're labeled, so they have little labels on them. So I can be like, yep, all these ones go in there, and then all these go in the next one, and then the next one, and I can be done. And I've just got so many. It's one of those things that like 3D printing is, it's kind of nice to have. I was really happy with this. I've done some 3D design in the past, but this was one that I actually managed to get right on the first try, which is miraculous if you ever 3D printed something. 9 times out of 10 when you 3D print something, it's like, oh yeah, this will fit perfectly, and then you actually print it and goes, none of this works at all. So that was exciting. It was really nice. The printer also didn't fight me this time that much. Fought me a little bit.
That's awesome. For me, I am a sucker for special edition books. I love special editions. So recently, I had gotten off of the wait list for a subscription box called Illumicrate, which I had to send them. They're great, by the way. There was a slip up where the May box had to get delayed, and I hadn't received it yet. So I sent customer service along email and was like, "Hey, what the heck? I've spent $70 on 2 boxes and have not received one yet as of a week ago." They're really awesome. Customer service was great. They sent me back a novel of an email answering all my questions and offering to help me in whatever way they can. So highly recommend Illumicrate so far. I've had an excellent experience other than the fact that I hadn't received anything yet. But as of this morning, I did receive my Illumicrate box. Zach, if any of my address was just apparent, please blur.
Me? Blur? What? No, never.
I received my first special edition today. It is called Of Jade and Dragons. It is gorgeous. Looks awesome. And it's got really pretty sprayed edges. Sorry for audio listeners, this is going to be a rough segment for you. And then when you take off this, you get this underneath book. So it's really, really pretty. Subscription box costs with shipping about $35, which I think is worth the money. It's about what you'd pay for a hardcover book anyway.
Yeah.
So plot, haven't started it yet. Plot feels a lot like a Mulan kind of vibe of woman going undercover as a man in her home country to fulfill a duty. Sounds really exciting. It's got huge print, so I'll just tear through it one of these days. I'm very excited about it. So that was a mystery one that I got from the subscription box. Now there's another subscription box called Fairy Loot that I have not been taken off the wait list yet to get a box, to be on their subscription list. I've been on that wait list for about 6 months now, and I'm still waiting for my email, but they have a retail store where they offer some special editions there. You guys know how much I love Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. I'm still trying to track down the first one, but I was able to secure the special edition of Ruthless Vows, which this is your sprayed edges. And then it's got really fun and paper. And on the outside, this is the book.
That's pretty.
So it's really pretty. Spent about $40 on this one. I really want to get the matching special edition for the first book, but because this came out, now they're upselling. I'd have to pay about $400 for a copy of it. So we wait for the day that someone has one that they're dumb enough to let go for less than that. I have been able to secure a few other of these secondhand special editions, and they're all on my shelf. Too many to show, but I'm a sucker for these, and you'll probably see more of them from me, especially now that I'm receiving Illumicrate boxes. Thank you, customer service. You are wonderful. I'm very excited to have them. But yeah, that's in my little collector hobby edition of my books, not just what I'm reading.
Wow. I think that wraps us up. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed our discussion. We're going to do we do these episodes weekly. Words are hard. Words are really hard. If that's not often enough for you, come join us in the Snowflake Sanctuary Discord server. We are there way too often. If you want to offer your own insight, you have any ideas that you want us to hear, or you think we just sound like a cool group of people, go click that link down in the doobly-doo. I'm also going to throw all the links to our spreadsheets in there if I can, because if you guys want to actually see some of that information and maybe even copy, or I shouldn't say that, just look at what we've done, then I want to make that available to y'all. Thank you for listening to us. Click the subscribe button if you haven't. I know it's a silly thing. It does really help us out, though. And we hope to see you in the next one. Bye.
I remember the 2 hands today.